Yes, thank you. Thanks. Welcome. I'm delighted to see all of you here tonight. Last time I did this talk, I think you're about 20 times as many people as last time I did this, so welcome. Okay, my name is Fredrik Vraalsen. I work as a software developer at Knowit in Oslo, Norway. And I'm going to talk to you about one of the ways we've been using Git in a novel way to handle software distribution and deployment. So first, let's just talk a little bit about the background here. The project I've been working on is developing the sales system and the back office system for the Norwegian railways. So handling all the sales of tickets and reservations and stuff like that. And also working as an integration point for a lot of other services. So it's been, actually last summer it celebrated its 10th year anniversary in production, but it's under continuous development, adding new features, new services, like now we have sales via mobile apps and stuff like that. But it's a fairly standard Java EE application. You have your application server and so on. But what I'm going to focus on today is the thick clients. We have a set of swing clients that are in use by the sales personnel in the various stations and so on. So, over the years we have experienced a number of sort of pain points or issues with just related to distribution and deployment of this application. There have been issues or instances where the clients have not received an update or for some reason are running an old version, and this of course leads to bug reports. So I was sure we had fixed this stuff, and it turns up again, and we dig into it a lot and spend a lot of time on it. It turns out they're not running the updated version. And we also seen issues with when we deliver this stuff, they run these clients in test systems, of course, first, and sometimes these test clients end up running against the production system and vice versa, which lead to other kinds of fun and interesting bugs turning up. And finally, there have been one or two issues where we have, because of the way we used to build and release this stuff, not always delivering the same thing that we had tested, so we thought we had fixed something, but it turned out that we delivered something else. So we figured we need a better way to handle this. So we have been using Git for version control for our source code for quite some years already, and we're very happy with it. And we figured, well, I'm pretty sure, like the introduction said, that most of you know what Git is, but of course it's the distributed version control system written by originally Linus Torvalds for his little pet project, Linux kernel. And it's been gaining use in a lot of different projects, especially open source, but a lot of commercial software developers are using it as well. And we were very happy with it. So a while back we realized that Git could also be used to distribute software, not just source code. And help us with issues that we were seeing. So what we did was basically create a small sort of launcher application for our client application that took care of updating the software for us. And it's actually very simple. What it does is just first it contacts to get more control on what is running on the clients in production versus test and so on. First it contacts the server to ask it, what version should I be running? And then it basically just checks it out. It's a Git tag or a branch, or it could be whatever, but it's usually a Git tag. So it checks it out. If it has it locally, of course. If it doesn't have it, it will contact the Git repository to receive the new releases. So this gives us more control over what's running in each environment, and we get sort of self-updating clients. And it also allows us to sort of pre-distribute new versions. What it does is also sort of initiate a similar thing to Git fetch in the background. As the client is running, it will fetch new versions in the background. And this, so this helps that when a new version is put into production, it just switches immediately, it just checks out a new version from the local repository. It doesn't have to download anything, and it's very quick and easy. And of course, we're using the same Git repositories in hosting the versions in test and in production, so you can easily switch between the two systems. And there's no, since you contact the server to figure out what version to run, there's no longer any issues related to running the wrong version in the wrong system. So, sounds nice, right? But of course, there were some challenges or issues that we ran into along the way. This is running on Windows. Windows is really really likes to lock all the files in your running application. So you can't just update a jar file that's being used by your application. And so we had to create this we ended up actually with a 4-stage launch because we also wanted to be able to update the launcher itself if we had some bug fixes or something for that. But that worked out pretty well once we had figured out the small kinks. What we used to implement this is actually JGit, which is an open source Java implementation, pure Java implementation of Git. And that's used, for instance, in the Eclipse Git plugin. So it's receiving a lot of care from the Eclipse guys. They're using it themselves to host. They're using Git now as to host the Eclipse project as well, so they're using it actively. Excuse me. Okay, so we got past that one, but then it also turned out that we got it tested and working on our own systems, released it to the client, and it worked until we had the first update. Turned out, of course, that their file system rights were not the same as we had in the test system, so the users couldn't update the files that we tried to change. But after a couple of bumps like these, we fixed this, and now it's actually been running in production happily for about, well, a bit over a year, so I thought I could share a few numbers with you. We've had, since then, I've been talking mainly about the client, but we do the same thing actually for the server application as well. We basically just put the whole JBoss application server with the deployments and stuff in the Git repository. And instead of sending them the new deployments, they just pull from our Git repository whenever we have a new server release as well. So in the last year or so, we've had 41 releases of the client, about 4 or 5 major releases, and the rest are, of course, bug fixes and small additions. A lot of people have asked me, how does Git handle these binary objects? I mean, they're basically jar files and stuff like that. Does it handle it well? Or will the repository grow to unmanageable sizes? And in our experience, at least, it's been working pretty well. The client application is about 70 megabytes, including all the jar files and stuff. And with these 41 releases now, the repository, the .git directory, is about 110, 111 megabytes, which is no big deal in today's computers. And likewise, the server, here we see that the repository is a bit larger, but it's on the server machine. It's not an issue. The reason is probably because we have one big air file that we distribute. But Git can actually handle these binary files pretty well. If you do the garbage collection and stuff in Git, it can compress them and also do delta compression and stuff like that. So even if they are jar files, which are basically zip files, they get compressed, or it manages to find the deltas and utilize that. And I'm pleased to say that since we did this, we haven't had, that I know of, a single issue of the type that we talked about earlier, that clients have been unable to update or running wrong versions in the system. So this has reduced our support burden quite a lot related to these kind of cases, and of course helps us when we develop that we don't have to look for bugs that we thought we had already fixed and turn out to be fixed as well. Okay, so I'm going to start summarizing. So Git has helped us a lot gaining control in what we deliver to the customer and what they are running in their systems. We have had less issues. Normally when we had these issues before, we had to get a lot of logs from their IT administrators and figure out what went wrong and have them involved in fixing the issues. But now we don't see those kind of issues anymore. Git handles these kind of changes well, not just source code, but these kind of most of the releases are, as I mentioned, pretty small, just change 1 or 2 jar files and stuff like that, but it handles binary releases as well, pretty well. And this means less work for us, so we can play with new and interesting technologies and features. So that's basically what I have for today. So any questions? If not, feel free to come down and ask me questions later, or email me or send me a ping me on Twitter or something. Not for the kind of stuff we have done, no. It's not feature complete compared to regular Git, and I imagine we could have had them install an actual Git client on the computer as well, but we didn't want to sort of burden the IT admins with it, since we managed to create a solution that worked just in Java. But we haven't had any issues with it. The main issue, I think, with JGit is sort of the lack of documentation, but we managed to find enough documentation and examples to make it work. And of course, there's also open source, so you can go in and look at it. Anyone else? Okay, thank you for your time.